to the Ladies Car Care Talk Show. I'm so excited for today's episode because this is Cindy Calderon with my husband, Irvin, and we are here with an amazing couple. Her name is Emily and Aaron. I'm so excited to have them here because they have a similar business as us. They're sharing their knowledge about cars, but as a couple, and I love to hear about them because identify a little bit of what we're doing as well. So Emily, welcome. Aaron, welcome.
Thank you. Awesome to be here. This was cool. It was just going to be you and I, and then our husbands joined, and you're like, we need to do it as couples. So let's do it. That's awesome.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, how you guys started and everything?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we started being together years and years ago. He asked me to be his girlfriend when I was 14 and he was 17. So we've been together already 20 years. Wow. So he grew up in the heavy diesel repair business. So he was always around cars.
Yeah. So I'm fourth generation diesel engine builder. And so I was around that stuff.
I'm moving the mic closer to him.
So we started that way, and I was obviously interested in things with engines. And so I guess when I was 17, we got together and I had this Datsun 280Z and we started building that and kind of working on it and trying to figure it out. And because I was in the shop all the time, that's where Emily was.
I wanted to be with him, so I was always in the shop. I'm like, well, if that's where he is, that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that because, it's the same thing that started with us when we opened the shop like 6 years ago. I mean, I didn't know anything about cars, but he was in the shop. So I want to support him as well when we open our business. And I was there too. So that's when I started learning a little bit about cars. And that's when we start helping women to learn more about cars, and all this journey started. So I love that you mentioned that. So how it comes, so you guys, he was at the shop. So when it was the time that you guys decide to jump in this journey of doing the YouTube videos and teaching people about cars?
So I got hooked on cars early on with Aaron working on stuff. He had our money was still separate back then when we were kids. He had a 69 Camaro and he was doing an engine build on it. And so I, of course, was right there.
It's not as fancy as you think. It was a
pile. It was a turd. Super rusted out, but 69 Camaro. I mean, come on, it was awesome. So he was building the engine, right? So he was doing one head and he was like, Emily, why don't you install the other head and you can watch me and just go along with what I do. When I install the head bolts, you can follow me in the pattern. And so that was the first time I had actually gotten my hands dirty and worked on something.
Emily's dad was not a car guy.
No, still isn't.
Amazing dude, but not mechanical in any way.
Yeah, he's still not a car guy. He watches every episode on YouTube, but he has no idea what we're saying. He's just like, there's my daughter. He's supportive as all get out, but he is not a car guy. But when we were building that engine together, that's when I got hooked because what happened, and he was brilliant at this, after I did my side of the head, I installed the springs and installed the head bolts and torqued them right after he did. I was like, okay, I'm ready for you to check my work. And he was like, I'm not going to check your work, Emily. Like, we're going to put the engine in the car and go drive it. And if you did something wrong, then you need to feel those feelings. You have a lesson to learn. And if you did something right, then you need to feel those feelings too, because that's really important. And it was the coolest thing because thankfully I didn't do anything wrong. I did stuff right. But when we drove that car, and I still get chills thinking about it, I was like, I installed some of the bolts on this engine that's hurling us down the road. I feel like a badass. Like, it was the coolest feeling. And, if he had gone over my work, then I wouldn't really have felt the same feelings. It would be more like, he'd made sure it was good, so we're good. But because he did it the way he did it and encouraged me to move forward and learn the lessons that I had at hand, it was the coolest thing. And I just got hooked. So early on, I began to work with him and wrench, and we began to build stuff together. And that, grew into what we're doing now. So we started the channel in 2015, March of 2015. And we started it because my first car her name's Roxy. She's a 2005 Pontiac GTO. So I had gotten headers for Christmas from Aaron, and we had the car on the dyno, and it was in early January. We had the car on the dyno to get a fresh tune in it since we installed the headers, and I had an oil system failure. So the oil pump went out, and as it was on the dyno, it started knocking, and it was the worst feeling. I mean, it was just so sad because that was Roxy's original engine, and that car is my baby.
It was original, but it had heads and cam, and
right. It was modded, but it was her heart, So the car started knocking. We pulled it off the dyno, went home and got a trailer and trailered it home, and I was just broken. I was so sad. So a couple of months went by where I was just kind of trying to figure out, what am I going to do, and I just decided, I feel like I want to start a YouTube channel, and I want to shoot it well where I can get some parts for free, because I want to go bigger and badder with this engine. I don't just want to put original parts or even just the parts that I had on it back on. I want to go bigger. And so I put together my first sponsorship proposal, and I decided I wanted to put a supercharger on it. And I sent Magnuson superchargers at my very first sponsorship proposal, and they said no.
They didn't just say no. They said, even if you were Chip Foose, we would not give you a supercharger.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so I had to move past that, because early on, rejection was just kind of part of it, and it still is. You just have to realize, don't take it personally, keep moving, keep building. So I, worked on it, and we ended up starting the channel in March, a couple months later, and I was able to work with Comp Cams and get some parts for Roxy and build her engine back. I built a 6.7 liter. I stroked a 6 liter. And so it was bigger displacement, bigger horsepower, put an awesome camshaft in it, sounded amazing. And that was the beginning of the YouTube channel. So the first few videos was building that engine. And
that engine built 525 to the tire?
Yeah.
So it was pretty healthy.
It was pretty good. And I drove that for like 50,000 miles. Yeah, the car has,
It has like 200 on it now.
It has 200 on it now, but when the first engine went down, it had 50,000 miles. And then I drove the 408 stroker motor for another 50. And then we've since then done more stuff, more fun stuff. But yeah, the start of the channel was that, and it was really crazy. I'll let Aaron tell why he started being on it, because the first just engine build was just me. And then
so I mean, I'm definitely a guy that I'm a mechanic, head down, and just
doesn't want to be on camera.
Don't care to be on camera. Really don't care to socialize in any way. Naturally, I'll say that. But it is very interesting because we went to SEMA, I think it was.
Well, so we revealed Roxy's engine build on Hot Rod Power Tour.
Yeah.
So that event is an
Yeah.
event that Hot Rod Magazine does every year, and it's a 7-day, 7-city road trip. And it's so awesome. We did it for our honeymoon, actually, in 2007. So we wanted to go back at that event and have the build there after we'd worked with Comp Cams. They're one of the sponsors for that event. So Roxy was parked at their booth every day. It felt super, super fun. And we had worked on promoting ourselves through the YouTube channel and that build before Power Tour. So at Power Tour.
Yeah, so it was interesting. We parked the car, and then all these people would come to say hi. And I don't know what our followership was, but it was enough where
probably a couple thousand
people made a trip to the event to see Emily. And and I was awkwardly standing kind of off her shoulder a little bit. No one knew who I was. And I mean, I probably look like a bodyguard, except I'm not built like one, of course. But that was really strange that, there's this line of men that want to talk to my wife.
Oh.
And I went, I went, okay, I kind of need to get over this camera shyness thing and get out there and do it, because then we can both be having conversations with these people.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, it just felt disingenuous that everybody thought I did it by myself. I'm
Right.
like, no, I got into cars because of him. I'm not out here doing this by myself. Like, I didn't build this engine by myself. Yes, I did a lot of the bolts and, installed the camshaft and all of that stuff. But Aaron was right there, and he's the one that taught me in the beginning. So it just felt so disingenuous that it was just me on camera. And so I had already been on him like, babe, we've got to do this together. We've got to be on this show together. And he's like, they don't want to see me. I'm just, I don't even want to talk to people, much less a camera, And I'm like, yeah, well, that's just not how it's going to be. And so when we went and physically we're like meeting people that knew who I was, but they didn't know who he was like, okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah.
I do need to be on it, So it was awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And here with us, I was the shy on camera. I wasn't, he's the one, you can put him on camera and talk on the microphone. He's like a fish inside the water. But for me, it was really hard just to trying to be in front of the camera on the microphone. I was like, oh, babe, I don't know if I can do this. And he was the one, yes, you can, babe. And every time that I remember the first time that I went in Facebook Live, I started crying. I'm like, no, I just can't do this. and he was the one like, no, you can do it. He was the one encouraged me to do it, because obviously I was attracting women to learn more about cars. So he cannot be the face to say, hey, women, I'm going to help you.
Yeah.
But I had to be there. So when we were there as a couple, and then I started standing up as a leader in the auto industry, it's like, wow, okay, this feeling when you start teaching someone and they learn and they get something from you, that feeling is like, okay, we can do this. And we were talking before, like when a couple stand up together, because if you go to our Instagram, you see pictures with me and him all the time. And a lot of time people get inspired by that. Just seeing couples working together in the same passion, the same vision, working together is just amazing, because we encourage others to do the same.
And that's what we do on YouTube as well. Like that's the biggest thing for us.
Yeah, and it was neat when once we got the ball rolling a little bit, and I was on camera for probably 6 months, we started getting that feedback of, well, me and my family watch you on YouTube, and my wife is interested in going to the garage with me because she sees you guys working together, and that's pretty much all the fuel you need just to keep going and keep doing it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and now I feel like the shy one. I haven't talked too much.
I was like, yeah, he's talking.
Yeah, I got the microphone now. No, you know what? It's true. For me, working with my wife at the beginning, it wasn't easy. I will lie if I said, oh, you know what?
It's the hardest thing we've ever done.
No, it is not easy. It's not an easy task. It is hard. Because you get to get your spouse a lot more than you think. Because when your husband go to work for 8 hours, you probably see him for 4 or 6 hours a day. It's totally different when you work and eat and sleep together for 24 hours. It is a totally different thing. So when we overcome that and we notice that it's actually fun, that it's actually easier to work with your spouse. Why? Because probably happened to you guys, that you are sleeping in bed, it's 10 a.m. in the morning, 10 at the afternoon, 10 at night, I'm sorry, and you have this idea, and this idea is popping in your head, and you're talking with your spouse, and that conversation leads to 2 hours conversation, and you have like content for your videos for like probably a week. And why? Because you're working together. Because sometimes those ideas comes in the middle of the night. And if you have a partner that lives, I don't know, a few miles away from you, you're not going to call them, hey, dude, I have it. No, it doesn't happen. So that's why when I'm working with my wife together, and I'm talking about in everything, running the house, we have 4 kids, but hey, you take care of these 2, I take care of those 2. All right. You go to the groceries, I cook. I wash dishes, you sweep. you know what, I'm gonna do this part of the business and you do the other part of the business.
Yep.
We start delegating. And I like what about you said that when you delegate, like when your spouse trusts you, you feel good. You feel like you are porting something to the cause, to whatever you guys doing. And we start delegating. I tell my wife, okay, you take care of that, and don't ask me for opinion. I trust you. I trust you,
Yep.
and I trust your judgment. And I believe whatever you said, whatever you said is going to be okay. Why? Because we set up a mission. We set up a vision, and I said, okay, baby, we going that way. We go in that direction, and every decision that you make, it has to be pointing to that. And so don't ask me if you're gonna, purchase a $5,000 Louis Vuitton purse, because is that gonna help us to get closer to our vision? Yes, no. Okay, so you decide. Don't ask me what to buy. You know what to buy.
Right.
And I give her my trust, and same with her. She was like, okay, you do what you need to do, and I trust you. And we notice that we start gaining more territory faster. That we start growing faster. That we as individuals, we start growing a lot faster. I mean, we've been 13 years together, and when we started dating and all that, we get mad for stupid stuff. But now, no, because the trust is there. Yep. The trust is there. I mean, we're not dealing with things that we did 13 years ago, and we start growing. And that's what I like. That's why I want to encourage whoever is gonna listen to this podcast to work, if you're married, of course, to work with your spouse, work with work it out, work the things that you have to work out. And it's so easy, and it's so interesting to work with your spouse. It's fun. It's like having your best friend working with you 24/7. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's very important also to figure out what talents the individuals have. So
that's key. That's the key. What you just said.
So if Emily asked me to cold call a sponsor and try to get some money out of them,
you're like, that's not me.
She'd be setting me up for disappointment. Like, it's just not going to happen. But I can figure out, what pistons need to go in the engine, and the heads, and the fuel injection system, and the fuel system. I can lay all that out easily, like in my sleep. I can figure all those details out. But asking her to do that would also be kind of out of her wheelhouse. It's not natural.
I would second guess myself. I'd have such a hard time putting the list together, because I'd be like, oh, but I read this article that said you shouldn't put a, high top, or like a pop-up piston with this, and all the different elements. I'd be like, oh geez. But he's so good at that.
That's true. Actually,
they give me a parts list, and I'm like, hey guys, we would like to work together, and we have a YouTube channel, and you should send us these parts. Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, we'll talk soon.
That's true. And that's very true. When you find what is your talent and what your spouse talent, and you guys work, and you guys are good, and what you guys are good at it, oh my God, it's like dynamite. I mean, it's like with me. I tell my wife, I don't have that that spark like you with girls. I mean, I just don't. I used to. But no,
I gave that spark to you.
But you have that. I mean, you attract that audience. I can be the face of Ladies Car Care. I'm like, no, and she'll like, no. I say, you got this. I mean, I know there's something in you that you haven't seen it, but I see it. You go for it and do it. And sure enough, I mean, she grew a community on Facebook in about a month or 2 months, from nothing to 2,500 girls. The audience, they're all like, I'm telling you, girl. I mean, and that's true. When you position yourself in a place that you're good at it, oh my God, you start growing quick.
Yeah. And even if you're not quite good at it yet, go forth. Keep trying, and then you'll get good, and you'll grow, and you'll
grow into it.
Yeah.
We talked about that a little bit earlier with, I'm not naturally a camera guy or a podcast guy. It's just not, it's not in my makeup, but for a period of time, I can be as good as anybody else. But that's been 6 years of training, and just
he decides to, and he's like, all right,
I decided this is important, and this is what we need to move forward. So I have to get over it and just do it.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious about, as you started to work together, Emily and I had some major challenges. And,
She like, yep, I remember those.
yeah. So what's interesting is even though I'm a mechanic and kind of a very methodical person, I'm also very creative. As far as I was a musician for 9 years playing bass guitar. And so I very much see the whole picture, and I can, see through the camera and the shots that need to be done and things like that. Emily's career was modeling and acting. So she had a lot more experience she saw very talented people doing this stuff. So that was a bit of a conflict of, I think it should be like this, and I think it should be like that, and all that. But the biggest one was because my dad owned the shop, very early on, I started managing mechanics. Mm-hmm. And mechanics are some of the most calloused, hard-headed people you'll ever meet in your entire life.
Tell me.
They're opinionated. They're just, it's a rough group to, button heads all the time. And so my problem early on was I would work 8 hours a day, come home, and then we're trying to build an engine.
And then I want him to get on camera and shoot with me. Well, like, hey, babe, yeah, parts came in. Yeah, you should do a brake system. And he's like,
and I've got to come home and do more mechanic work and look happy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the major issue. The issue was I'd spent, at that time, probably 14, 15 years managing these mechanics, and there's a certain way to manage them. Mm-hmm. Like you got to be a bull. You have to be in charge, and you've got to let them know this is not going to work, and I don't care about your opinion. This is the right way to do it. So I started treating Emily like that because that was natural. Like it was programming in my brain of it's like, don't ask me again. I told you how to do it. If you didn't get what I was saying, figure it out. Mm-hmm. And you can't treat your wife that way.
Nope.
Turns out
it doesn't work out.
Turns out I'm like, click the camera off. I'm like, okay, I'm thinking don't want to do this job with you. I take it back.
She would say, I think you need to say that a little nicer. I'm like, well, I thought I was being nice.
Because I'm learning, it's like, even though we've been doing this so long together, working on cars, it's not what I do every day, or wasn't. We do it a lot now, a lot more, but when you're learning something, I'll feel like I understand, and then I'll kind of ask the question in another way. I'll be like, so when you say I put this pin here, should it go in easily, or do I need a hammer? And like there's this frustration and awkwardness. I'm like, yeah, I can see him getting a little bit pissed off. Okay, I really want to do this, but I can tell he's frustrated, and I'm kind of a dum-dum, so I need to like figure this out. So yeah, I mean, this has been the best thing we've ever done, but the hardest thing we've ever done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the best part, because we're growing together. I mean, we've been doing this. I mean, this is just an idea, like for you guys and for us, that's an idea that we keep working every single day, but we're growing together. And I can see myself 6 years back, and I see myself now, and I see us as a couple, like where we were in that position, like back then, and now it's like, wow. The good thing is, like, we lift each other. When I feel down, he's the one comes and lift me up, and all the way around as well. When he feels like he had a problem at the shop, or maybe with the mechanics or with customers or something like that, he comes to the house and is like, okay, this is my time to lift you up. And that's the beautiful thing of working with your husband, your wife, that you're growing together and you're learning in that journey. I mean, it's just an amazing, just having the opportunity to be with him, because I know there's a lot of couples right now that are hearing us, and they were like, they wish they could work together, but sometimes they have a 9 to 10 job, 5 to 10 job, and they were like all the time, I wish I could, but obviously my finances don't allow me to, or I wish I could do it, but I cannot stand 24/7 being with my wife or with my husband. And I remember before we even opened the shop, God gave us this word that we have to quit his job and go for open this business. And for 2 years and a half, we lived together before, I mean, like 24/7. And it was a big process. And I think that was the big key for us to be here now, is that we learn to know each other even more deep. Because sometimes we think we know our husband or wives, but no, we don't. We have to spend more time together in order for us to say, build that relationship a little bit deeper. And that's what it brought us here now. And I'm so glad that we met you, that we met another couple that is doing similar things, because both are working on cars and we're working on the same industry. But it's amazing just that to have you as well, that as an opportunity for more people to see, hey, see, there's another couple that is working together and going from that direction. So with that in mind, what will be an advice that you guys will give to the couples there, or maybe it's just a wife that is hearing right now, that if they want to start working together or doing just for fun, even it can be just for fun?
Well, I would say something that I appreciate with you guys, and something that I feel like people appreciate about us, is it's okay not to know everything. Like, I think that it's a beautiful thing that you don't know everything about cars. You're not trying to teach women about everything about cars.
Yeah.
You're learning as you go. You go, and this woman needs her, her brakes done on the car, but she needs to understand it better. So you go learn some from your husband, and you get in the shop and you learn the components and the parts, and you go back to the woman and you say, okay, let me help you understand why we have to replace both the rotor and the caliper. Both of these parts have to work together, and if you just replace one, then that's not good enough. That's not going to fix your problem. And so you're learning, but you're not doing it in a way that's abrasive, or like, I'm teaching you because you're dumb. It's like, I'm passionate about this and I'm learning as I go. And that's an awesome thing. And I think that's something that people see in us that they appreciate, because a lot of times I'll learn as I go on our YouTube series, and I'll tell people, I made this mistake and I learned this, and this is the outcome of this job or whatever. And people love that we show mistakes. It's not like we're trying to pose as experts. We're really honest, and we're like, hey, we're learning this, or this is the way we're going to do it. And then it doesn't work out. And we're like, oh, okay. Turns out you need to do it like this instead, because look what happened. And people love that. And so I think that's something we both, can capitalize on, and also help people be inspired to try it themselves, because you're going to learn as you go. And that's the beauty of it. You learn about yourself, you learn about your partner, and you can both find the best in each other. And that's the journey, and the challenge of it all is to
and you mentioned it earlier. It's a whole lot of it is just trusting your partner, and trusting that when they actually need you to interfere with information or ideas, they'll ask you. And so a lot of times when Emily's doing stuff, I'm looking at it and I'm going, well, that's not the way I would do it, but she'll probably get there. She'll figure it out. And if it's totally wrong, if we're welding something together, if it's totally wrong, we just grind it back off and start over. It's not the end of the world to, make mistakes. You have to do that. And also I would say if we're talking to other couples, it's extremely important to begin to learn the different personalities. Like we were talking earlier, I'm very introverted. So we go to SEMA, and, I spend 4 or 5 days out there constantly talking to people. And we occasionally get into these things where we're signing autographs, and just a lot of that audience knows who we are. So going to the restroom might be a 2-hour event. Well, if that happens to me for 3 or 4 days, I kind of need to be alone. Like that's a fact about my personality. For me to be the best for Emily, sometimes I need to be alone. I need to get in the truck and just take a drive, or whatever it is. And you've got to understand the different personalities. Emily can be around people all the time, and would be around me 24/7 if she could. But sometimes I need to just break away and go do something, reset my personality and my mood, and then I can come back into it. And that's a big deal for couples. We're never the same. We're different people.
That's true. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, and I love that you're saying that, because I think that's a key. That's the key
Mhm.
for building a healthy relationship sometimes.
Yeah.
And well, we are running out of time. I think we can be here like talking all day long.
Probably can make a part 2.
I think we're gonna have to make a part 2 about this podcast, because it's just, there's a lot of good information that we can give just by our sharing our journeys.
Mhm.
But tell us a little bit where we can find you. I know there will be a lot of people too that they don't know much about you guys. So just share with us where we can find you, what social media, or where exactly they can find more information and connect with you.
Absolutely. So if you're searching for our YouTube series, it's Flying Sparks Garage on YouTube. And then we have an Instagram and Facebook, Flying Sparks Garage. And then my personal Instagram is at I am Emily Reeves. And Aaron's is...
And I'm on TikTok, which I'm very bad at, but TikTok and Instagram, it's Pilot Reeves.
Pilot, P-I-L-O-T, Reeves, R-E-E-V-E-S. Maybe we could post this and then ask people what questions they might have for us. That might be kind of cool, because we do a lot of Q&As, and there's always unique questions that people have.
We get so used to our life, like we sometimes forget what people actually want to know.
Okay.
One fun little last story before we close out. So I'm a pilot, and Emily and I own a little airplane that's about 3 miles from the house. So as far as that couple things goes, I was very nervous to fly commercially. She was modeling and acting, so she was traveling all over the world. And I realized that that's going to be part of our life, and I'm going to have to get over this fear of being in airplanes. And so like I do with most things, I went head on. Went out to the local airport and started to learn to fly, because I reasoned if I could, and you'll understand this as a mechanic, if I could understand it, I can get comfortable with it. If I have enough information on the way the machine works, then I can be totally comfortable. And so I started taking flying lessons. And what Emily did was went with me, and she sat in the back seat as I was horrible and probably making her sick every single flight, trying to learn how to maneuver this thing. But she was like, you know what, if this is something you're doing, we're doing it together. And that has been a really fun journey and a good lesson for couples. If your husband has a project car, get in the shop with them, learn that can be family time if he wants you to.
Actually, at the shop, she goes sometimes. You gotta understand, we have 4 kids, so
right.
Logistic is a little harder on our end. But actually, as a matter of fact, my 10-year-old kid, she spent all day yesterday at the shop.
Yeah.
And he's so excited. He'll like, okay, Daddy, what are we gonna do today? All right, you want to do some breaks? Yeah. All right, let's do it. And he's 10, and he gets so upset when my toolbox is unorganized. He'll like, Daddy, he's like, you gotta put the things away. I'm sorry, boss. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But it's a good family time. He enjoyed it. He knows how to put tires on, how to torque them down, all that. But this is wonderful.
That's 2 years old.
This is 2 years old. Say hi.
Hi.
And this is the guy who was at the shop.
Hey, dude.
So what I was saying is, as a family, we have a online business like you guys. All right, we talk about cars, but if you think about it, it's not just about cars. And when we teach values, we teach more than just that.
Ambition.
And that's the beauty of it. That's what I like. It's not just a square that is like, okay, you put it on it. And no, it's not like that. And I love the way that we do business, like you guys. That's why I really connect with you guys, the way you do it, about values. I like about the airplane story, because I'm that type of guy who likes to conquer fear. I'm like, if you're afraid of something, let's destroy that thing. What are you afraid of? You're afraid of because you don't know it.
Yeah.
That's what you're afraid of. Once you study, once you start to know it, you're gonna get good at it, and your your self-esteem is gonna grow.
Yeah.
You built yourself. That's why I like the airplane stories. I mean, on my end, and her too. She learned a lot of things on her own. Like I remember the first time, like I'm talking about mechanics. I asked one of the guys, "Hey, can you teach me how to do an AC?" I was probably 18, 17 years old, and he said, "No." I said, "No, you're joking." I said, "No, I'm not gonna teach you." Oh, and he asked me, "If you want me to teach you, give me $200." I'll say, "Get out of here." And I get so upset that I get back then we have books, and I grab a book and I had a car in front of me. All right, let's see how this thing it works. And I shot myself into that library for 2 hours, and I was reading. I said, "I know how it works." I went in there, fixed it. It was something simple. It was the pressure sensor.
Yeah.
Fixed it, and that was it. And then the guy came in, like, "I know what it was. It was the compressor." I said, "Nope." And he asked me what it was. I said, "Give me $200 and I teach you."
I love it.
That's the best.
And I learned how to tie myself. I was like, "That's true. I mean, what are you afraid of?"
Yeah.
I mean, like the airplane. What are you afraid of? I mean, of course you're afraid because you didn't know it. And that's the beauty of these channels. That's the beauty of working with your family, that you not only give content about cars, about airplanes. No, you give content about life. And that's what I love.
And that story is, when Emily told me she was going to do this podcast, she was kind of quizzing me on, what advice would you give to a woman? And I said, I don't know if they are going to like this, but my advice would be educate yourself, learn it. It's not about, when I have a woman that calls me on the phone about, a diesel pickup or something, and they're immediately combative on the phone, like, "Oh, I know you're going to take advantage of me." That's not my customer. I'll stop talking to them, because I'm not that person. You don't know who I am. I understand that mechanics in history have been neglecting women and taking advantage of them. Mm-hmm. But if you come in with information instead of an attitude, mm-hmm. then you protect yourself.
Yeah.
It's like learn something about your vehicle and research it. There's so much information on the internet about any make and model, and what it's doing. So just teach yourself, and that's the best way to deal with these sleazy mechanics that want to take advantage of you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that will be the best way to end this episode. And now that we still live, I think we're gonna do a second part 2 of this podcast, because I think it's just amazing, and we can do like a Q&A. So stay tuned on our Instagrams, follow us, and we are going to announce, and maybe we can gather questions from our audience and your audience, and we can come as a couple, 2 couples, and answering those questions. I think that could be a really fun. So stay tuned for that, because we are telling it now on air. So that will have to be a thing that we're going to do. So thank you so much for your time, Emily and Aaron, for being here today. Thank you for being part of the Ladies Car Care podcast. And I just want to say thank you, and see you on next time. And thank you for hearing our listeners. Please subscribe, share this episode if you think it will be helpful for another couples of people that are in the same situation. And see you in the next episode. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Ladies Car Care Talk Show. For more resources from Cindy, or to join the Ladies Car Care Facebook community, you can follow the links in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening and share with your friends.